Spiritual awakening is often imagined as a moment of enlightenment, an instant of pure clarity. But for many, the first steps of this journey come with an unexpected realization: separation. The world they once knew begins to feel distant, and they themselves changed. The thoughts they once had now seem foreign. The priorities they once held no longer guide them. A quiet transformation begins, pulling them away from the familiar and into the unknown. This awakening may come suddenly, triggered by great suffering, loss, or an unshakable moment of truth. Or it may unfold gradually, through quiet contemplation, moments of stillness, or an inner calling that refuses to be ignored. At first it is exhilarating, an expansion of the mind, a newfound awareness. But as the initial awe fades, something else sets in: a distance. The world that once felt so real begins to lose its grip. The old self, the old world begins to fade, replaced by a growing sense of something deeper, something unseen but undeniably present. As reality shifts, so too does one's connection to others. Conversations that once felt engaging may now seem empty. Laughter that once brought joy may now sound distant. The priorities of the world, money, status, ambition, begin to lose meaning, and with that loss comes a growing divide. It becomes difficult to explain this transformation to those who have not experienced it. The language of awakening feels foreign to ears still attuned to the material world. And so a rift forms, not out of choice but out of a fundamental change in perception. The first true moment of awakening is not just a realization, it is a departure. As spiritual awakening deepens, so does the way one sees the world. It is as if a veil has been lifted, revealing a reality far different from what was once believed. The routines, the distractions, the endless pursuit of material success, all seem hollow in the light of this new awareness. What once seemed important now feels insignificant, and what was once overlooked now appears profound. A person may begin to notice patterns they never saw before, the synchronicities in daily life, the unseen connections between thoughts and reality, the energy that seems to flow through all things. In this state, the physical world becomes almost secondary, as the mind begins to dwell in a space beyond it. This shift in perception is not always gentle. It can be overwhelming, even disorienting. A person may find themselves questioning everything they once held to be true. Society's rules, traditions, and expectations suddenly appear as constructs, illusions that have guided people blindly for generations. The need to chase status, wealth, and recognition seems trivial when compared to the vastness of existence itself. The awakened mind begins to see beyond the surface, sensing the deeper patterns of reality, the hidden forces that shape events and experiences. At times, this awareness feels like a gift, an invitation to understand the universe in its truest form. But at other times, it feels like a curse, as the weight of knowing creates an unavoidable distance from those who still live by the old illusions. But this new way of seeing comes with a cost. The person who awakens to a deeper truth often finds themselves separated from those who still see the world as it was. They may try to explain their vision, but their words feel empty to those who have not yet seen. Conversations that once felt natural now seem strained, as if speaking two different languages. The awakened may feel like an observer rather than a participant, watching the world move through cycles of repetition that no longer hold meaning. They may begin to withdraw, not out of arrogance, but because they can no longer find resonance in the conversations and desires of those around them. The divide between the awakened and the unaware grows, not out of superiority, but from experience. It is not a rejection of the world, but rather an inability to fully return to it, knowing what they now know. As the awakened individual moves deeper into their transformation, a painful realization emerges. The relationships they once cherished no longer feel the same. Friends, family, and even lifelong companions may seem distant, as if they exist in a world the awakened can no longer fully return to. The conversations that once sparked joy now feel shallow, and the values they once shared with others no longer align. They watch as loved ones continue their routines, seemingly unaware of the invisible shift that has taken place. It is not just a difference in thought, it is a difference in perception, a widening gap between what was and what is becoming. Attempts to explain this shift are often met with confusion or dismissal. Some may view the awakened person as changed in ways they do not understand. Others may feel abandoned, sensing a growing emotional distance. Words that once carried meaning now feel empty, as if spoken across an unseen divide. The more the awakened try to express their revelations, the more disconnected they may feel, as if speaking a language no one around them can comprehend. And so the loneliness grows, not because of a lack of love, but because of the vast difference in perception. Some friendships endure, adapting to the change. Others dissolve, not out of anger, but out of an unspoken understanding that their paths now lead in different directions. Some awakened individuals withdraw, choosing solitude over the pain of misunderstanding. Others try to maintain their relationships, but the strain becomes undeniable. They walk between two worlds, one they have outgrown and one that calls them forward. It is a balancing act between love and truth, between remaining and evolving. The loneliness is not from a lack of people, but from a lack of shared vision. They may still care for those they once held close, but the foundation that bound them has shifted. And in this struggle, they must decide. Do they hold on to the past or embrace the solitude that comes with transformation? The journey forward is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The person they once were can no longer exist within the world they have left behind. For many, spiritual awakening is not a path of endless enlightenment. It is also a path of suffering. This suffering comes in the form of what mystics have long called the dark night of the soul. It is a stage of deep isolation where the awakened feel abandoned by everything they once trusted. Even the divine, which once felt so near, now seems impossibly distant. What was once a journey filled with wonder and revelation becomes a descent into emptiness, where neither the past nor the future feels certain. It is here, in this vast silent void, that the awakened are forced to confront their deepest fears, doubts, and wounds. This stage of awakening is one of the most painful. It is a time of questioning. Why must this journey be so lonely? Why does enlightenment come with so much suffering? The seeker searches for answers, but only silence responds. The once familiar comforts of life no longer provide warmth. Even prayer, meditation, and reflection seem empty, as if every cry for guidance is swallowed by the abyss. This is the moment when the ego resists the most, clinging to old identities, old attachments, and old fears. The person undergoing this transformation may feel like they are dissolving, breaking apart into something unrecognizable. Yet in this darkness, a quiet realization begins to emerge. Perhaps this suffering is not a punishment, but a necessary purification. Doubts and wounds. The dark night of the soul is a rebirth in disguise. It strips away all illusions, all attachments to the self that no longer serve the journey forward. What remains is the raw essence of the soul, free from conditioning and pretense. The pain is real, but so is the transformation. Those who endure this stage often emerge with a clarity they never had before. They begin to see not just with their eyes, but with their spirit. The suffering is not endless, nor is it meaningless. It is a gateway to something greater, something eternal. The self that emerges is not the same one that entered the darkness. It is wiser, lighter, and more attuned to the unseen forces that guide all things. After the darkness, solitude becomes a sanctuary rather than a burden. Many awakened individuals find peace in silence, in nature, in the stillness of their own thoughts. They no longer seek validation from the world, but instead embrace the quiet wisdom that solitude provides. The once unbearable loneliness transforms into something else, an opportunity to listen, to reflect, to understand. It is in this solitude that they begin to sense the presence of something greater than themselves, not as an external force, but as something woven into their very being. In solitude, the awakened learn to listen, not just to their own thoughts, but to the voice of the universe itself. Every moment becomes a lesson, every breath a sacred act. The distractions that once seemed vital now fade into the background. The need for constant external stimulation disappears, replaced by an appreciation for the simplicity of being. The awakened may walk alone, but they are never truly isolated. For in this silence, they begin to recognize the subtle forces that have always been guiding them. But this solitude is not meant to be an escape. It is not about hiding from the world, but about strengthening the connection with something deeper. In solitude, the awakened find themselves, not as isolated beings, but as part of an intricate, unseen web of existence. This is where they learn that they are never truly alone. Every star, every breath of wind, every ripple of energy is part of something greater. And in time, they understand that solitude is not an end, but a beginning, the foundation of a new way of being, one where they walk through the world not as lost seekers, but as quiet, knowing presences. The final stage of awakening is reintegration, returning to the world not as one who is lost, but as one who sees with clarity. The awakened must learn to balance their newfound awareness with the reality of life, finding ways to exist within society without losing themselves to it. It is a delicate process, one that requires patience and wisdom. At first, the temptation to retreat into solitude remains strong. The world may still feel overwhelming, filled with distractions and illusions that no longer hold power. Yet true enlightenment does not come from abandoning the world, but from walking through it with understanding. At first, the contrast between the awakened state and the world's routines feels stark. Conversations often revolve around matters that now seem trivial, and society continues its relentless pursuit of status, power, and wealth. But the awakened no longer feel the need to resist or judge. Instead, they learn to move through the world without attachment, engaging with it while remaining centered in their truth. The illusions of the past no longer control them, and yet they participate, not as one who is lost in them, but as one who understands them for what they are. This reintegration is not about abandoning the journey, but about embodying it. The awakened now move through the world with purpose, their solitude having taught them the deepest truths. They become quiet beacons of awareness, not needing to preach or convince, but simply living in alignment with what they know. Some may take on roles as guides, teachers, or healers. Others may simply carry their awareness into their daily lives, influencing the world in subtle but profound ways. The path is no longer one of isolation, but of quiet integration, blending wisdom with presence, solitude with connection. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope that you join us on our next quest for enlightenment. Like always, stay curious.